Hi everybody, welcome back to day number 3 of our 5-day challenge. I hope you guys have been enjoying the first 2 days and been able to put some of the stuff into practice. I'd love to hear some of your experiences, how you're finding it. Let us just know. So today I want to talk to you about getting all cosy in here because it's actually suddenly freezing. Hot water bottle too. I want to talk to you about exercising those senses, and we do that by using them. So, very, very simple today. There are a few different ways to do this depending on what you have available. But basically, I want to get you to start using that extra sensory perception, as they call it. Anything beyond the, 5 senses. So, connecting with something that perhaps you are not able to see. And sensing with your feelings or your knowing or just reaching towards it, and then seeing what comes up with you. This is also going to help you identify what way you most enjoy perceiving, because we call it the sixth sense, but actually that's a really simple way of it's an oversimplification, because it's not just a singular sense, it's actually usually an extension of a sense you already have. So for example, some people would be more clairvoyant, some would be more clairaudient, they hear things. Some people are clairsentient, they feel it really strongly in their body and in their emotions. And others are more sapient, is it? I don't know, where you just get a download of knowledge. Some people can smell stuff, we've spoken about this before. So in reaching forward with your energy, you'll start to notice what comes up for you most, and I'm sure you'll also get a mixture, of these different types. And don't worry if you get nothing at first. It's all about just extending your energy in that direction to create the intention, because in so doing, you are constantly asking and therefore receiving. It's a little bit how, evolutionarily speaking, we evolve by asking on a need basis. So the chameleon that needs to be not eaten by XYZ, its need to protect itself creates this, the intention that nature then responds and creates an answer, such as camouflage. And we evolve more and more to our direct interactions with the environment that cause needs, desires, preferences, intentions. So what I'd love you to do is if you have a tarot deck or an oracle card deck, or perhaps even a deck of cards, although they are slightly less efficacious because they don't necessarily have so much story or feeling behind them, but they're good for just sensing colours or just using your senses. So let's say you have an oracle deck or card or a tarot deck. If you're familiar with the tarot deck, it will help more, but basically just give them a good shuffle and just lay out 6 cards. It can even just be 1. It doesn't really matter how many, but don't overwhelm yourself. I would say probably no more than 6. And lay them out in a row and just take a moment to do what we did in the first video, which is to connect with our higher self. So we take a deep breath in through the nose and then out of your mouth. Just calm your mind, get centered, and you do that a few more times, and then you just ask yourself to be connected with your higher self. I now ask to be connected with my higher self and ask my higher self to guide me in understanding what these cards are, or just guiding my intuition as I learn more about this muscle of mine. And it doesn't matter how far we are in our journey with this, there's always more to discover, so it's a great practice for anybody. And then when you're ready, just however you feel called. I personally like to hold my hands above them. You can feel the energy difference. So that's what I want you to start sensing, is between these 6 different cards, spend time just hovering over each one and notice the difference in your feeling in your hands. You might notice that one makes your hand tingle. You might notice that one makes you feel a slight relief in your energy, and one might create more tension. You might get impressions in your mind, very, very subtle. You might get just an emotion. You could get anything, and I just want you to notice what changes as you put your hand, probably your left hand best, because that's the more receptive hand, which is more connected with unconscious, impressions rather than the active masculine external hand. So with your left hand, just go over each one. Doesn't really matter which one though, which hand, and just notice the difference basically, and take note. Okay, just notice, oh, there is a change between the cards. So that's layer 1. Layer 2, what you can do, and don't worry if you haven't got cards available, there is a different version of this that I'm about to explain to you as well. Although if you haven't got them, I suggest you do get some, because they are amazing tools to work with your intuition. Excuse me. Yeah, so hovering over each one to feel what different sensations you're getting, and what kind of impressions you get. So I personally get, if I close my eyes over them or just hover over them, I will often hover before I do a reading. I'll do a scan of the cards, because I get a story out of them before I even look at them. So often I'll also be able to tell, oh, this is a positive card, this is definitely a negative card. This, as in, like, there's a resistance there. There's a story here to be told that is going to speak to the shadow. Whereas this is like, oh, okay, that's nice. And it just helps me already build up a picture of where the meaning is, essentially. And sometimes I'll hover over a card and I'll close my eyes and I'll get a picture. So, for example, I recently won a competition with a tarot reader that I adore called Dr. Elliot Oracle on Instagram. And I love his readings, and he did a competition to win one of his books, which was to guess what 2 cards were on the screen. And I won! So when I did that, I didn't spend too long. I just closed my eyes and just let myself receive an impression, and it was the picture of the cards that it was. So I, but obviously being a tarot reader, I'm pretty well practiced in this area. So, but I was thrilled nonetheless. But I did have a feeling that it would probably go my way. And sometimes I will just see the cards, or more often than not, I won't see the card specifically, because I asked to see the card that time. So I sent an intention, like, I want to know what this card is. But usually I just want to know the most important message from the card. So often I will see, the aspect of it. So often cards are either, to the element of water, which is very emotional based, or pentacles, if you're talking tarot, which is more about sort of the material side of things, and wealth and abundance and value. And then you're looking at cups, which is all about, I've just said that, emotions with water. And these are all obviously, basically elements of nature, but also the different tools within the tarot deck. And you've got wands, which is creativity, and you've got the arrows, swords. Sorry, there's so many different decks that do them differently, but you see what I'm saying. So, for example, I had the Ace of Cups the other day with a client, and what I saw was this sparrow kind of bake down, and this kind of open hands feeling, like lots of emotions and liberation. And that is the Ace of Cups in the traditional Rider-Waite. Don't do this to me. Sorry, my computer is having a black screen moment. Okay. And so when I flipped it over, and the Ace of Cups is this sparrow falling into the cup, and I was like, it never fails to amaze you when it happens, even if it happens all the time. But yeah, so what I want you to do is to just see what happens. So now I want you to, so you've done the thing where you feel the different feelings above them. And then the second layer is to concentrate on one card and just extend your intentions to understand that card, to know what that card is. And again, it doesn't have to be specifically what the card is. It can just be impressions that come from the vibrational frequency of that card. So it could be, you could get visions of a waterfall. You could get a feeling of warmth. Maybe it's the Sun card. You could get a feeling of just like busy, chaotic energy. Maybe it's the Five of Swords. Or maybe it's the Knight of Swords rushing in. Again, this is tarot. If it's an oracle, maybe you get a really warm feeling of calm and peace. Perhaps it's the angel deck that is the angel, of peace, or whatever it is. Okay, so just I want you to play with that. Experiment, go wild. And then obviously when you feel like you've spent enough time doing this, reverse them and have a look at them, and don't just stop there. Like, look at them and engage with the image. Again, ask yourself, where is your eye being drawn to in the image? Letting yourself be guided to really like what's important about this card, because you will have drawn it for some reason for yourself as well. But we're not going into that now because let's not complicate things. And that's more on the divination side of stuff, which if you're interested in, I think I'm going to be putting a course together on specifically how to read cards for yourself and others and other divinatory tools. But for the purpose of just stretching your intuition, I think it's really great to sense what the cards are when they're turned down, and then when turning them around, really look at the card and let the card communicate with you. Notice where your eye's being drawn. Your higher self will be highlighting what aspects of this card and the imagery are relevant, or are relevant to what impression you got about them, you know. So maybe it's there's a lot going on often. Maybe you saw a sunflower and you notice upon closer inspection that there are sunflowers all over the robes of the King of Wands, or perhaps there's a detail of a mermaid with a baby mermaid and something of the kind, and you saw laughter and children playing or something. Just basically get to know your cards, have a little good feel, and really notice, pay attention. So again, noticing the sensation in your hands, noticing any impressions in your emotions, any changes or fluctuations there between the cards, noticing any changes in what impressions you're getting in your mind, what you might be hearing, what you might even be tasting. Pay attention to it all. Okay, excuse me. Another thing you can do this with, if you haven't got cards, in fact, if you haven't got cards, you can do this with simply cutting up some cardboard or pieces of paper and just colouring in, or having a big circle of a block of colour in each one. So red, purple, green, blue, whatever. Turning them upside down and just noticing if you can feel the difference between the colours and if you get a sense of them, and trying to guess which one's which. Again, that's another one that's actually nice and simple. You can do that as well as the other cards. So cards aside, if you have crystals, this is a really nice way to, again, get used to how you notice things in a way that isn't typical to your five senses necessarily, but rather getting an energetic imprint. So this is something I do with my daughter a lot, and my son, but he's better at it now, but when I used to do it with them more, he just had no idea what was going on, but it was very sweet. So I have lots of different crystals. At the moment here, I only have my quartz that I can lift up, and some selenite and stuff, but if you can get yourself a few different crystals that you might have lying around, and if you don't, go get some. I mean, I know it's lockdown now in UK, but you can order some online really cheap, just to get a few different tumblers even, just to work with and get to know. But get some of your favourite crystals out and just spend a good few minutes holding each one and connecting with the energy of the crystal, and letting yourself notice how different they feel. So this is something that, before Calliope knew anything about crystals, I would get her to hold each one and say, what does it feel like? What do you think this crystal is for? What kind of healing properties do you think it has? What does it make you feel and think? And she would hold them, and she would literally hold them and tell me exactly pretty much what was written, in the little booklet, if you had one, what would be the description. So with amethyst, she'd be like, oh, it feels so soothing and calming, and I feel more relaxed, etc. And then with the rose quartz, oh, it feels really loving and like a warm hug and motherly and and all these different things. And so it's really interesting what you can pick up on when you let yourself, and you don't have any self-judgment or that layer of thinking that goes, well, this is poppycock. So spending time with excuse me, each crystal in turn in your hands, taking a deep breath and letting yourself just feel them. So for example, I often feel thirsty when I'm around crystals because I find them thirst quenching. It's almost like they're frozen water, and like the same crystalline kind of, they're like sort of solidified light. There's just something really nourishing about them. So when I'm close to them, I start to get thirsty, especially with fluorite. And it makes me remember to drink enough and to get into balance, but also it just feels like there's a certain, for me, it connects to me on a certain level of quenching me, I suppose, and reminding me to keep quenching myself in many ways. But the clear quartz just feels so like clarity in a stone, essentially. And if you had, rose quartz, you could really, you can hold them on different parts of your body and notice how you feel and notice how you respond. Doing the same with, labradorite or fluorite, or, well, look, I mean, the list of crystals is endless, but whatever you have available, you can lay them out for you. Another good thing you can do, apart from just holding them individually and spending time to connect with them and feeling what different impressions you get with them, is, again, like the cards, lay them out in a row and hold your hand over each one and notice the difference in frequency over your hand. Like, is it changing buzz, Do you notice a warmth or a special connection with one? Because crystals do talk to us. They do call out. Certain ones will be like, touch me, take me home, I'm yours. And others will be like, blah, no connection. Or even, excuse me. We had bonfire night in here last night, so I think there's still a little bit of residue of all the sparkler smoke and all the stuff. Yeah, so that's it, guys. I just would love you to spend some time connecting with crystals, connecting with cards, and getting to know your own unique way of sensing changes in frequency between these high frequency items. You can do this with anything as well, so I'm just trying to think, if you don't have either of these things, you can do it. Being shown this car, even if you've got like a bunch of kids at home, you've got cars, right? It doesn't have to be high frequency. It helps because you can feel more in your subtle body. But even with things like this, if you had like a big car that's chunky like this, a little car, you know, whatever, all your different cars, and you just spend time just feeling on top of them, you'll notice that you can actually sense their physical kind of density beyond their physical form. So you're connecting with them without necessarily, you can maybe do it with your eyes shut. The idea is to get familiar with extrasensory perception. The kind of information you can glean and gain from interacting with items without necessarily touching them, although sometimes even from touching them. Certainly by just not using the part of your body that you would usually use to, say, look at something or touch something or taste something. You know, you are, by touching this, I can still gain information through my hands and through my feelings. I'm like reading it. You see what I mean? And with cards hovering above similarly. Anyway, I think I've made myself relatively clear. Any questions, as always, please just drop them in the comment section below. I feel like a right YouTuber now. And yeah, I will meet you for our day for tomorrow. Lots and lots of love. Hope you're all well and managing lockdown okay in the UK if you're here. I personally, I'm not too fussed because the schools and childcare is still open. And that is everything to me. Alright guys, lots and lots of love.